Yogi Berra once said that making predictions is hard, especially about the future. I want to share with you some tools that I use to help customers predict and anticipate some of that future. In the April of the year 2000, roughly around the 19th of April, I was finishing my service in the Estonian military as part of my national service. And one evening, I had 2 weeks to serve. I went AWOL, absent without leave, to go to a friend's place of employment to send out my CV. I got invited to the interview, and I went there already in uniform, and I had permission to go there. I was hired as the 6th employee of a portal. In the year 2000, everyone wanted to build a portal. Yahoo was king, and portals to nowhere were all the rage. In the space of 1 year, I hired 125 people as head of research. Every 7th CV, we asked for an interview, and every 4th interview later on we checked, we hired. It wasn't that eeny, meeny, miny, mo, you're number 7, lucky you. But we did our magic with it. We tried to take the internet and put it into categories, and then to offer that service to companies. It was supposed to be the world's first online exhibition center. Less than a year later, I had to fire half of the employees that I was allowed to hire, and a couple of months later, also the others. Had I been able to know things I do know today, things would have been slightly different, probably. So in an alternate universe, I will invent time travel, go back and do things differently. Today, I want to share with you how to do just that. And I say there are 3 points and 3 keys to this. The 3 keys are strategic situational awareness, effective, not efficient, effective operations, and applying appropriate doctrine. I will speak with examples about all 3. So at that place of employment, it was called expokey.com, a portal. We had pretty good operations, I think. The doctrine, how the principles of organization were roughly appropriate. Could have been better, but that's not where the things went south. The strategic situational awareness about things to happen, how they will develop, what might be happening with us in the future was sadly lacking. So after working for that company, I felt very much like a person on the Titanic's sun deck, setting their chairs in order. Companies that have better understanding where they are at all levels, where they're going, they're able to predict certain issues, but don't apply appropriate doctrine, usually end up in a one-size-fits-all or a very political situation. Doesn't mean it's going to end bad, but this is some of the symptoms. So if you have operations that are effective and you have good situational awareness, but you have little understanding of doctrine, then usually I would say things don't work out as well, because you're trying to solve all problems the same way. No, I meant that to be for this one. The previous one, I meant that if people don't really understand how the operations are interacting, what they're doing, talk about that later, it's sort of like a train that's been set on its tracks, and it will move wherever the first founders intended that it will go. So let me talk about the strategic situational awareness. Usually when people say strategy, they mean 2 types of things. Number one, strategic and strategy means a long plan. This is an example of a 5-year plan that I have in my mind. So this would be the Soviet planning economy. That was great with plans. That had 4 small problems, and they always came as a shock and a surprise. The 4 problems of the Soviet planning economy were, of course, spring, summer, fall, and winter. The fifth problem was international imperialism, but that was sort of manageable. You could take that into account. That really didn't cause a lot of harm. The second approach to strategy usually is a bunch of targets. There are two companies that I've pictured here. One says that our strategy for 2020, so this was in 2016, I believe, they said the three keys to our strategy is we got to have excellent product innovation, good customer optimization, and we got to have great operational excellence. Now, what do you do with that information if you're the CIO or CTO? This talk is intended for CIOs and CTOs that are having complex organizations with multiple teams, multiple technologies, bunch of legacy that they need to get out from under. Doesn't really help us at all levels. Doesn't really mean that someone at the top is thinking strategically, neither does it mean that someone at the bottom is. So it's really hard to achieve. Second company strategy, also a bunch of targets. Want to be profitable, want to be a leader somewhere, we want to make sure our customers, employees are really happy. Targets, targets, targets. Doesn't really give you a great situational awareness. What I mean by situational awareness is that this is from Wikipedia, so this means that it's absolutely accurate. So this is the way it really is. But this is one way of looking at situational awareness. It's thought of on three levels: perception, comprehension, and projection. It's fall outside, you see birds flying, you're noticing, oh, birds are flying. Comprehension means that, this means they're migrating. I understand what's the significance of this event. They're going to places where there's more food. And projection means that maybe this thing will happen again when the seasons change. Most of the talk today is based on the intellectual property of the gentleman on the right. This good-looking gentleman without glasses is Simon Wardley. Guy on the left, Satya Nadella, the head of Microsoft, also taken in 2016, meaning that people at the FAAMG companies are well aware of what this thing is. Facebook, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Alphabet. Strategic situational awareness means that the 3 points. First, you need to have a map of our environment. This is a military exercise where everyone, well, not absolutely everyone, but a lot of leaders are gathered around a specific map. They're not gathered around a bunch of targets. They're not gathered around a pretty story. They're gathered around a map. That map has contextual meaning. It has position. It has movement. Usually in business, we tell stories, or we have these. These are diagrams. This is not a map. It doesn't tell you much. This is a database structure diagram. Here's another thing that is called a map, but is actually not a map. This is a value stream map. Can be a valid tool for many good ideas, bunch of good things. Things move from left to right, yes, but does space have meaning? This is a map of Latvia. Does space have meaning? For example, I take the beautiful city with an excellent beach called Liepāja, and I move it to Aluksne. This means that something distinct has happened, and we understand it very well, that what this actually means. Now, all maps are models, and all models are wrong. Some are useful. If you have excellent strategic awareness, you're able to map out your environment, what's going on within your company, and what is about to happen to things outside of your company, such as customer expectations and technology. What should you put on a map? First, you would want to put the evolution on a map. This would be the horizontal axis. Everything evolves, we know this, through supply and demand competition. It gets faster, it gets faster, it gets faster, but it's possible to anticipate certain events. Second thing you need for a map is how close this is to the customer. So here's an actual value stream from top to bottom. At the top, there is the customer, who is the anchor of the map. This is a tea shop in the UK. So people from two different types of people: businesses that prepay for something or have groups of people come in, and then there's the general public. They come in to get their needs met. Now here's the value chain of their needs. They want a cup of tea. What do I need to put in place in order to serve that cup of tea? We need cups, we need tea, we need hot water, we need regular water, we need heating, we need kettles, and we have a need for power, the sewage, personnel, whatever. So this is a value stream map, but with the added benefit of evolution. At first, to the left, there's Genesis, then there's custom built, then there's product and rental, and finally, it becomes a commodity. So first, at the left-hand side, there's a couple of guys and girls in a university somewhere. They make something work that works as a possible model. Then they do it as a probable model. Then they do a first iteration of that. And it sort of works in lab environments. Then that sort of idea is better known, better tested. And now you can custom build these things. Now you have experts that can come in and do this thing for you. Later on, more and more companies know how to do that. You can buy and sell these things off the shelf because people can simply pick it up. And the only differentiation is what are the different features on it, which is better. And finally, the people don't really distinguish between the different types of products, such as electricity coming out of your socket at home. Who's the provider of that electricity? You really don't know where that is generated, how it's delivered, but it's sort of there. So the evolution we're trying to model here is that we're only looking at how well a concept is understood. We're not looking at ubiquity. So on the left, the market is not well known. We know that these things will fail. It's gambling and gut feel. Will it work? Will it not work? Planning, having better plans for it, won't help you with anything. So we're talking about certain aspects of machine learning. Other aspects of machine learning you can buy off the shelf already as products and rentals. Many years ago already, hotels were using booking systems, feeding them their data so that these booking systems could set prices for hotel rooms and achieve better outcomes with historic data. You can buy that today. It's not a commodity yet. Later on, at one time, it will become a commodity. Now, I'm talking about pieces of capital. So this can be data. This can be practices. So these can be skills. These can be physical items. Think for a moment, where would you place a gold bar? Would you place a gold bar bullion on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side? I would place it on the right-hand side because it's well defined. It's well understood how a gold bar is made. It's sort of standardized. It is a commodity. That doesn't mean it's not valuable. It can be very, very valuable. More about the evolution of items in the future. So the first thing what you do want to have is a map of your environment. This would be an internal environment for a tea shop. Another simple, I'm making this specifically simple to build it step by step, but it becomes interesting if you're in the shoes of Edgar's or someone else landing in Malta, trying to help a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand people achieve a common purpose and a better understanding of what's actually going on. Here's a restaurant, and there changes what they did during the COVID crisis. So this restaurant has private and business customers. People go there for two things: eating breakfast, eating lunch. There's a seating area, there's a website, there's a delivery platform, and there's a menu on Facebook page. What I've noticed, what I've written here in red in the website and the delivery platform are the things, for example, that the restaurant did not have. They had all the other ideas and things available. They had the menu on Facebook, all of that stuff, but the delivery platform, which they didn't simply hook up with other delivery companies, but made something of their own for their payment and their website. So this is only the situational awareness of what's actually going on in your company. We can now map this out, we can discuss. This would be a value stream map if you would turn this 90 degrees to the left or counterclockwise, then it would go from left to right. So what we've done is simply taken your regular value stream and we've added a little thing called evolution, because things change in characteristics when they become more or less evolved. Here's a simple map of a school in Tallinn. This is the Tallinn Georg Ots College of Music. New headmaster, and they wanted to have a better understanding of their strategic choices. For that, Wardley mapping was a bit overkill, but this was necessary in order to get them familiarized with it when 3 schools, of which they were 1, needed to be united, so that we can have a common understanding of who are the actual users, what will be their needs, which of our existing systems should we use, so on and so on. So this is point number 2. A map is supposed to be a communication framework. So it means that we can now communicate about strategic issues without the need for egos, personal bias, storytelling. So to be at least a bit more rational. Will never become completely rational, but at least you'll be slightly less political. Here's another map. This is almost the most complex map that I will show you. But predicting the future this is a value stream map of a whole industry. This would be, let's say, the BBC 10, 15 years ago. The customers want to spend their leisure time. There's 2 types of content that is available. There's commission content that we buy from somewhere, acquired content that we buy from somewhere. For example, we want to show Friends episodes, we buy that. There's commissioned, we have TV series made. For that, you need artistic direction, you need production talent, you need production systems. All of these issues can be and should be mapped out so that you understand your value chain, where you are placed in a better way. At the moment here, they're trying to do 2 things. Number 1 is to make production systems cheaper so that the cost for producing commissioned shows becomes lower. So this would be an open play on the part of production systems. When usually strategy can be, someone says we have plans inside a company, something is happening outside, then this is a way to map a bigger picture of what's going on around you. If we have time left, I'll tell you more about it in the shape of how serverless, I promised to tell you why DevOps is the new legacy, how these things can be predicted. Third point I wanted to make here, framework for decisions and actions. If we all understand what the common vocabulary is, what are the risks involved, what are the ways of approaching this, and we have a better understanding of how many systems we have, then it becomes much, much easier for us to discuss. For example, the decision making. Edgar showed us a picture of his systems. Different gaming providers, different payment providers, different servers doing storage, compute, all of these issues. So if you have a better understanding of how many systems you have, you've mapped those out internally, this gives you an edge over others. Move on, let's move on. Effective operations. First thing here, actionable metrics. I remember joining this .com 20 years ago. 20 years ago. We hired, or the founders hired, a CEO. The CEO had a clause in his employment contract. Once we achieve 100,000 visitors, the CEO will get a bigger car. He was first driving a Honda Civic as a company car. So the measure or the target and metric that was used was something that won't really tell you much. Other measures and metrics that won't really tell you much in an effective way and aren't really actionable are things such as quality levels, customer satisfaction levels, profit turnover. They will tell you what the end result is, but not how you got there. So to have effective operations, number one, I would want to begin with something that's more actionable. Here's a pirate funnel. Pirate because that's what the pirates say. You're trying to go through your whole business model. What are the different stages and what are their qualitative and quantitative metrics? I don't see your faces at the moment, so therefore I don't know how long to sort of focus on that, then I'll probably move on. By effective metrics, I've seen companies that have more than 100 million turnover that use for monthly decision making, use 32 or 30 point slide decks where they compare different numbers, compare and contrast them with each other, that tell them basically nothing at all. They're excellent at measuring something, but not really making sense of it. If you take your whole business model, here's another way of looking at it instead of from top down, from left to right. This would be either a service blueprint or a customer journey. Your customer comes in from the left through, there's a regular purchasing funnel. Customer becomes aware of your product. They're considering it, comparing it with others. Then they buy it, then it goes to service. And then we hope to get them to buy more and come back. So this would be a way of looking at the right types of business numbers and metrics and measures that would actually tell you something. Here's another value chain. Here's a value chain of if I would want to survey my infrastructure with drone. So what are my different options for it? So here's a drone startup that has not yet decided where to place their value. A startup is a temporary organization that's trying to find the right fit between the product and the problem or the market. So hence the product market fit. Every one of those different places here, for example, drone service provider or a flight planning software or system or a cloud computing system, every one of these has a different business model. So it doesn't mean that they all operate the same way. Knowing what your business model in that value chain is gives you more situational awareness of what's going on around you. This helps you to be better at your operations as well. Second point, I want to talk about optimal decentralization. Let me show you a composite image of a typical product owner that is available, that is somewhere in the world. Here's what the product owner toolkit looks like. The difference between a product owner and a project manager is that the product owner is responsible for the ROI of a product, and the project manager is responsible for simply delivering what was told to them. A product owner is an organization's unique way of making decisions. You are a real product owner if you have four things: the right data, the right resources, the right competence, and the right authority to make decisions. Otherwise, the company is simply kicking the ball down the road, calling someone a product owner and asking them to sort of act as if they would be making decisions. Now, this is not wrong. This is not right. It simply is the way it is. It depends on what your context is. If your market is not changing, there's no competition, technology won't evolve, people won't change their preferences, centralized decision-making, an excellent idea. We don't have decentralized nuclear weapons, for example. It makes sense to have them centralized. It's a great idea. Maneuver warfare, on the other hand, if you want to move faster than your opponent, then centralization does not make a lot of sense. Usually, also when we speak about product ownership, we mean the different ways how this organization has been able to delegate their decision making. These are the popular animals that we've all seen in different contexts. Hippo, highest paid person's opinion, many, many others as well. Third is in effective operations. I would look at inertia. Who was first with a website, Blockbuster or Netflix? You all know that the correct answer there is Blockbuster. Who was first with offering a streaming service or experimenting with a streaming service? Also Blockbuster, but Blockbuster had inertia to its previous sunk costs and business models. They were making a lot of money from late fees. People were returning their video cassettes. That was a thing. Yeah. VHS video cassettes late, and they were paying a fee for it. If you're unable to have a great understanding what your blindness to future inertia is, you're going to be in trouble, or you might be in trouble. Here are 16 different types of inertia to be aware of your past success. I'll just say loss of political capital, disruption of past norms. For example, I have a department of 14 people, let's say 20 people, who are doing something that can be automated. If this department gets lost, I have less political credibility because I'm no longer a boss at that specific level. Transition to the new, investment in knowledge capital. For example, we have a data center in-house. We know that this should be migrated to the cloud, and the architecture we're going to use there probably is going to be more similar to serverless than what it is today. But the people who we have in the building, they don't have that capability. They don't know how to do it. So therefore, in order to get there, to get them to release an old thing that they're still holding on to, is to train them on something that they are able to let go of because they have job security. Only a few examples. This is supposed to be an intro. Third, and last, appropriate doctrine. If someone today would tell me that, hey, we're a 1,000 person company and we want to work on strategy, my first advice would be, no, don't work on strategy. Work on doctrine. In edge cases, in certain ideas, I would help with that, but usually doctrine is where it's at. Doctrine is how we think. What are our principles of organization if all else fails? Number one, remove bias and duplication. Let's say we're looking at a map. This is an actual map. This is of high-speed rail in the UK, HS2. Here's the map that was built virtually before you start building anything in the real life. So this would be a digital twin. If you have these systems mapped out according to their current state of evolution, let's say we would want to have a BIM, let's say Building Information Management, or the UK Land Registry 10 years ago was at a custom-built level. We know many things in advance, how we should procure them, how we should acquire them, what types of contracts we should use, so on and so forth. If we're looking at things internally, Edgar showed a picture with a bunch of different gaming providers, different types of servers in different situations. Number one, remove bias and duplication. If we have an understanding of what are our possible or existing systems and how mature they are, we can make decisions. We can make better decisions. Also, we can get there in a, Edgar said, to observe and blend in and create allies. Imagine you're going to an existing architect in a company that's in a technical mess and saying, so how many billing systems do you have? And that can be taken as an assault or as an affront to someone personally. But if instead they say, let's draw a map, could you help me understand where the billing systems fit in this place? And then get more people to sort of aggregate that. We would have less argument between you versus me, but more about a map. That's a sort of common target that we can both talk about. As I mentioned previously, this is the high-speed rail thing. We know also if things evolve, we're using contextually appropriate methodology. Everything on the left here makes more sense to use agile techniques, agile contracting. On the right, we can outsource these things because it's well known. Waterfall makes a world of sense. It's great for Six Sigma. It's great for big upfront planning, all of that. Spoke to a banking guy recently, and I said, agile here, agile there, but we're finding resistance when we're talking to the AML people, anti-money laundering, about adopting agile concepts. They're not really taking them seriously. So we're supposed to be agile in anti-money laundering when we report to the European Central Bank. Tell me how that's going to work. So if you have a good understanding of what's going on around you, you're able to apply doctrine. Number one, for example, is that we use contextually appropriate methods. There are places where we plan more, there are places where we plan less, depending on where these, how evolved the components are or practices. We can use appropriate methods, and we can delegate that people are able to make those decisions at the right level. And last, focus on user needs. If we have this can be done in teams, this would inform also your structure, how you would have these things made and so on. Depending on the maturity, you would know what types of measurement techniques you would use, what types of processes you would recommend to be used. And so you would have a different type of risk balance. Usually when I help companies with product development and agile concepts come to mind, then they're moving from departments to feature teams. If everything could be solved with a feature team, life would be different. We would all have six-pack abs and we'd all be millionaires. If you have a great understanding of your actual surroundings, you can then also make decisions. For example, I remember working with the Estonian Post, and they were informing a structural decision that if there's the GIS component, so geographic information system, which part of our logistics stream will not require geo data? Everyone will. So it makes more or less sense, depending on that, how to then staff that team, how to come up with the boundaries for that team, how to move on, so on and so forth. So I've spoken about focusing on user needs. User here at the top has these types of needs. So we can have discussions to say yes, we can say yes or no to different types of issues. Marketing comes to you and says, we need a new website because our current website is really bad. We need to do better. Then you could have those discussions. Is that really what our customer needs in this case? Or as Edgar said, that there's always a hurry to do this, everything is priority one. If you have a better understanding of what's going on around you, how things actually are, it's easier to make those decisions. Word of caution. If you're doing mapping somewhere, you've been doing it for a while and you have not been fired yet, you're doing it wrong. Mapping makes things real simple, crystal clear. It's 1 or it's 0. Which is it? We can have different discussions, but all these fancy stories and political discussions sort of get moved to the side. And if you have people who are about to lose something, what the saying is that turkeys don't vote for Christmas. So this might come, this added transparency can be seen as a threat to someone's position or plans or so on. One of the things I mentioned in doctrine, only a couple of things here, is we challenge assumptions. This would be focus user need, common language, be transparent, challenge assumptions. This is the fourth one down in the center. Usually when people said, I want to be challenged, what they really mean is that, no, I want you to implement and challenge other people's ideas. Having a common understanding of what's going on around us and what is about to happen will create more discussion and more opportunities for that discussion. So if you have an excellent understanding of what's actually going on inside your organization, what are the options outside, what kind of technology we could and should be starting to use, so on and so forth, will give you a good way to understand what can be predicted, what cannot be predicted. Edgars, how am I doing on time? I'd like to show two different types of disruptions, what can be predicted in certain cases and what not. Mr. Letinskis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since you're the last one, then until the power turns off or the last visitor is listening. I'm so polite that you can talk till morning because I will listen you.
All right. I'll give you a final point on it. And then I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Let's see, which map should I use for that? All right, things to be predicted and not be predicted. There are two types of disruption. There's the product for product replacement, and then when product becomes a commodity. Product for product replacement, that type of disruption is that we all used to have, a lot of people used to have Nokias, and Nokia 9210 was a phone I used to own. And then the iPhone came out. So it's still a smartphone, but it's a different product now. It has not become a commodity or a utility yet. This is really, really hard to predict because it's based on individual actors' decisions. We don't know what will be replaced with what. A lot depends on user preference as well. But certain things can be predicted, such as on this slide at the bottom here, there's something called compute. Compute was possible to be predicted. We knew that things moved from big server rooms to utility provisioning of compute, also known as cloud. And one of the economic patterns you know in advance is that as things evolve and become utilities, other people can build on top of them. So this enabled something called the DevOps. I've heard commits 8 times a day today. I've heard commits 2 times a day. Once compute went from product to commodity, this gave rise to new types of patterns and practices. Scale out, design for failure, continuous deployment, etc., etc. All of those practices became something useful and got its own meme, known as DevOps. Today, DevOps, if you're about to start on that journey, it's slightly late. By the time you will have completed your 6-year journey of DevOps, it will have passed you already. Serverless is here. I'm here to provoke you. And something that is currently a best practice will become a legacy, such as serverless, for example. So people saying that, no, we cannot use cloud. Cloud is not safe here, will not be done here, and no, it's never going to work here. These wars, we knew that they are about to come, and after a slight kerfuffle, there are winners and there are losers. Amazon, Microsoft, they're doing quite well in their cloud business, and we've only seen the beginning. The future of unicorns with 2 people who will have built just one function, but build a lot of value for different types of companies is about to arrive. Edgars, are there any questions? Should I defocus from this. Stop sharing, right?
About questions. Yeah, Philip probably is worried that he didn't see Minnie Mouse slide. There's some promise on Minnie Mouse. Then Jason commented that actionable metrics is extremely important, but maybe you see yourself Sage comments. There are not so many.
Got it. Minnie Mouse. I usually try to tell a different story with that. There's a Disney quote that people in Minnie Mouse character, they get asked questions such as, at what time does the 3 o'clock parade begin? Valid question. But this teaches you sort of to understand what is the question behind the question, why they're trying to understand that, and not being flippant, but trying to understand what the actual user need there behind it is. It's a different presentation that I had open.
Okay. Then Jason mentioned that he thinks that about actionable metrics could be entire presentation. Then Alexei mentioned that you're talking about worldly mapping, that all presentation is about worldly mapping. And Philip has a question, can you give any more good predictions on the future?
Should I go one by one, or?
You ask me?
Yeah. Should I begin with actionable metrics? Say a
if
few
you
words
want,
on
you
that.
can say, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So the actionable metrics thing, by the way, to get started on that, if it's a new company for you or you've been with it for 10 years, doesn't make a difference, really. You begin with the, I would say, the service blueprint or the customer journey. It goes from left to right, and you then try to have a sheet of paper or on a whiteboard here. What goes on in this stage? Let's call this the purchase decision. Where do they look at these things? What's important here? Is this quality or quantity? What type of data should we be looking at? What type of data do we have there available? What would be the cost of having this data? Where could we have the biggest impact on it, and so on? Then you're looking at your previous cost models and other types of decisions that people are using to make these types of decisions. So you begin with a clean slate, and you can get quite dangerous quite quick. It's really not rocket surgery. Worldly mapping, yes, that's Ben Mosier's. There's Christoph Daniel, our colleague from Poland. He's spent the most time with Worldly himself. He's working in the same company, Leading Edge Foundation, Forum, not Foundation. And Ben Mosier is an American guy. An excellent idea to get started with it. More good predictions on the future. Could you be more specific, Phillips, please? Do you have some online course on topics you covered? No, I do not. Because, yes, Ben Mosier's is fantastic. I usually help my clients in face or online. We did this 3-school unification throughout the summer, fully over Zoom. We had people discussing these issues. We began at the strategic level. People aren't really used to strategy because of 3 ideas or 3 reasons. Number one, they're usually so focused on details and how to do things, so the what and why is sort of hidden from them. They're not used to it. Second problem is that it's somewhat abstract. You need to be comfortable with abstraction and with not knowing. These are somewhat difficult. And the third is that people have come up through the ranks as specialists. They haven't really had this experience before. Someone's simply said, eat as much cake in an hour as you can. No one said what type of cake should we eat and how should we cut that stuff up. Which JavaScript framework will be the next big thing? Thank you very much. I have no idea. One of my key strengths is to be ignorant. Usually, a consultant, you should never let a consultant tell you what to do, but they should give you a useful model that might help you make those decisions on your own. Plus JavaScript framework, that's way above my pay grade. No brain, no pain, Phillips. I'm not a technical person despite my background, my first diploma was in IT management. I tried to stay away. I can really embarrass myself real well, but I have no useful advice to provide. There are other people that have some stock advice. Oh, don't take any from me. However, Edgar was saying that network effects. Yes. Okie dokie. Let me show you a common economic pattern known as the ILC model, innovate, leverage, commoditize. Let me show you how the, what did he say? Platform model, how that works, right? How Amazon currently is becoming faster, more customer friendly, and always more profitable because the ILC model works there. So these are the different stages of evolution. We have Genesis, there's custom, there's product, and there's a commodity. Electricity came along, that enabled something known as telephones. Some people could talk over long lines when they had reliable utility commodity electricity. Telephones also enabled later on things such as radio and television and the internet, all of these types of things. So you can build on top of that. And what happened with the cloud, for example, here's AWS, utility provisioning of compute. It's available there. Now, people in startups, they're not going to have their own servers or racks of things. It's too much risk. No one's going to have their own electricity development, except in specific cases. They're going to use a utility. So they're going to build on top of that here. And this is a tough place to be because this is where innovation and startups happen. Most of them don't make it. They die. Some of them do. Does Amazon look into what's happening there? No, they don't care what business you're in, but they see that certain components are better used or more or less used. If they move here, for example, there are now different custom issues made. Now they become products. They can either purchase this product and add it to their ecosystem, or they can build the same thing on their own. And all the while, you will hear reports about, oh no, Amazon is killing my business model. Oh no, so on and so forth. My smartphone, for example, at first didn't have I couldn't use it for lighting things. I needed a special app for it. Now it's a standard functionality. So the innovate, leverage, commoditize is that someone else does the innovation for you. It's sort of your free ecosystem of innovation. This is how they approach the startup world, the existing bigger players. They look at what's going on, buy some of the survivors at the end, or build it on their own. So this would be how to understand different types of markets. Not markets, but platforms and ecosystems. Do I consider launching a course on Udemy? I could, but the Ben Mosier thing is great.
How do you type Ben Mosier? Can you type?
Ben Mosier. Someone posted the link here as well, learnworldlymapping.com. Edgar said, what would you do? And then he said, how would you start? He said, map. Yes. Map. Absolutely. He had issues about structure, which I would use a map for to inform those people. Plus, it wouldn't be just me at the top saying, hey, guys, I've come to a great understanding. Now everyone come to Jesus. Just implement what I told you. No, that's not going to happen. But if you give them awareness of what's going on around them, help them to make better decisions with the common framework of doctrine and understanding of those issues, they can make those decisions in line with your higher level intent. He said, every team has their own agenda. Versus ivory tower architects and so on and so forth. Absolutely. Yes, they do. And if you're, duplication will happen. People will go across here, there, and so on and so forth. if you don't have a map not implemented, but available so people know what to do with it, these types of discussions become real hard due to reasons of inertia, personal bias, and also things we didn't know simply about. Unless you have great situational awareness, it's going to be hard. One of my clients, Mart Nael, used to be the CIO of the Estonian Post. He left to a financial services company. He had 9 countries, banks, financial services that were provided in 9 different countries. And he said he couldn't understand how he could do his job today without having a map of those 9 different countries and what the different types of systems are available and so on and so forth. How to make those types of decisions, plus how to delegate this information and the ability to make decisions down to the lowest necessary level.
Properly, there is one more question from Kristaps about quantum computing.
You have the best questions. I'm not qualified to answer that, but I'm great at embarrassing myself with these types of issues. Have you seen when the Canadian Prime Minister was asked about the quantum computing? He was great at explaining what the heck quantum computing is. But once again, not smart enough to know that. Now, which topics or presentations would you recommend? There's a thing called Wordlipedia. We have Wordly mapping. There's a map camp, an annual one that just happened a couple of weeks ago, but now online, so you can see all the presentations there. It's been going on now for 3 years. I've been to 2 that happened in London. There was one I went to that was in Edinburgh. It's an evolving field. It's all of this is publicly available information. It's been there since 2006 and later on, but it really doesn't travel that fast. Things I did not talk about. I did say what's happening internally and sort of what's happening externally, but I did not talk about how to manipulate or what are the different options for manipulating things in the market. I'll give you just one pattern. All of these patterns are all known if you look into Wordly mapping as well. FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I had a previous colleague that used to work for a Scandinavian bank. The Scandinavian bank in infrastructure used mainframe computers. And he and a couple of colleagues then made a case for moving to the cloud in certain areas, saving a couple of dozen million Scandinavian money units. And guess what happened 5 minutes later? The IBM helicopter landed on that bank's highest floor. A couple of IBM consultants showed up and said, "Are you really sure you want to put your career under this big risk? Yes, you could save a little bit of money here, but would that really be worth your career? All this public backlash towards this little bit of, or this security breach and so on. Are you really wishing to have this type of things happen?" Look into it, there's more about it. The most important part is to understand doctrine and to start implementing ideas from that. Then generating a better situational awareness from whichever level you're at. What are the downsides and criticisms of using Wordly maps? All right, when I go
Let's
into...
This is the last question. And if anybody wants to ask you something else, can I drop your email here in a comment? Okay.
Feel free. All right, downsides and criticisms. Okay, if you haven't been fired for using something like that, you're not doing it right. Because it exposes a lot of fluffy concepts into something that is tangible. The hardest part actually is to get people to start doing it. Usually it takes 7 years to get good at it. First 6 years, you push it to the side. No, now's not time. Then at the end of the 6th year, you say, okay, I'll do it now. And then you do it. It's something like riding a bike. But also getting people to have had issues usually with analysts, less trouble with architects and CIOs. and people who have an understanding of evolution. Also, people with military background are great with maps. But I've also met an executive at a company who said, nope, 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 nope. There is no such thing as evolution. Everything's on the right-hand side. So it's either this product or commodity. That's our software people are failing us. They're not committing. That's the problem we have here. I've just joined this company as an executive, and I know this thing. He also said that at a higher decibel than I just used. So people have different approaches, let's say, in different experience. But if you're beginning with an actual problem that they have or a decision you're trying to help them make, then this can be an invaluable tool to have more and better discussions. Like riding bikes and juggling burning chainsaws. That sounds dangerous and hard.